Thank you very much for joining us for that important conversation. And just same thing to set the stage on the topic that is at hand. I wanted to ask you, Alain-Richard, so you're the president of COP15 on desertification, right? So everybody knows there is a COP on climate, there is a COP on biodiversity, but there is a COP on desertification, and I think it's much less spoken of. So can you please enlighten us and tell us what are the main outcomes of that conference of the parties for this important topic? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, indeed, there are 3 COPs.
Yeah.
And the COPs are combating desertification and drought. It was less known because it was around drought. Desertification was mainly in poor countries. But today, we are facing drought everywhere. In Europe, in Asia, in Africa, in America, everywhere.
Yep.
And last year, the COP was in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire. And Côte d'Ivoire has the presidency for 2 years, for a mandate of 2.5 years. And the main outcomes last year was to recognize that there was a need to talk about drought overall.
Yeah, globally.
So globally, so there's an intergovernmental group that has been put up to raise the question of drought all around the world and stop fighting drought by reaction, but being more proactive about drought. The second main achievement of that COP was to talk about gender equality in land restoration and land property.
Yep.
A lot of countries in Africa and other places around the world, the women have less rights to the soil, especially in rural areas.
You mean in terms of property rights on land, right?
On land, exactly.
Yeah.
So there was a declaration at that COP about that and to change things around the world. Another big outcome of that COP was to aim at 1 billion trees planted all around the world from now to 2030.
Yeah.
And a lot of projects have been put up to reach that objective.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you very much for this. And again, it's just important to say it out loud. In 1992, these 3 branches of environmental issues were separated. God knows why, right? But what we're hearing through all this nature-based solution is that we need the integration of all these components, climate, biodiversity, and desertification to really arrive at some results. So thank you for reminding us of that. So you say it's a global challenge. About 40% of land globally is degraded right now.
Exactly.
Can you give us a concrete example in your region of a nature-based solution that helps combat desertification?
Yeah, one important project of the COP15 is, the COP on desertification.
Yeah.
Because COP15 is because it's the 15th meeting.
That's right.
You know, it's every 2 years.
Yeah.
One of the main projects is the Great Green Wall project.
Yeah.
The Great Green Wall project is a project to plant trees from Mauritania, Senegal and Mauritania, up to Djibouti. It's 8,000 kilometers. So that wall could bring a change in all the countries around the Sahel region.
11 countries, right?
11 countries around the Sahel region, which will bring economic development with agriculture, which will bring fund to the poorest people, climate change, of course, by planting trees, but also food security with agriculture. And not only food security, but also security as a whole. Because you know that in those areas around the Sahel, terrorism grows a lot because the communities are poor. The young people don't have a future. So giving jobs to those people will make them less affected by jihadist group. So the security on the whole will be changed, will be improved if we succeed in that project.
Thank you for sharing this illustration. Now, of course, you can all go see and learn more about it, but as we said, here we have illustrations of how working with nature and for nature can really tackle a number of societal problems somewhere. I'm imagining that that's complex, but thanks for actually illustrating the kind of issues that it can help address. Azadeh, welcome. You are the CEO of betterSoil.
That's right.
So you're working on the same problem of soil degradation.
Yes.
Your company is a startup that is operating in that space. Can you tell us what is the solution you're providing and what are the results that you're getting with your solution?
Well, the point is to bring soils into focus. So it means we are losing soil, 10 million hectares of good soil every year on the global scale. And soil is the second largest carbon reservoir on land, on Earth, after ocean. The point is that when oceans absorb carbon dioxide, it's bad. But when soils absorb carbon dioxide, it's good. It's good for soil fertility, it's good for us, because when soils are sick, food quality drops. So this is the aim of our startup, to bring soil again onto focus and say, hey people, global agenda, you have United Nations, you have COP15, you have a United Nations, CCD, and so on. Why not bringing soil back to the concept or to the focus? Our startup is focusing on only 4 principles, very simple: agroforestry, compost, biochar, and soil management. This is what exactly you said, combining trees with farmlands, bringing back trees to farmlands. This is exactly what Felix said before, that when you plant a tree, you plant one tree, but you see one growing above ground and one growing below ground. So you have massive amount of carbon stored in soil in the ground, what we do not see. So when you can give soils, again, this carbon, this nitrogen, what a tree can absorb, in our 4 principles, we have also a booth here, you can visit us, and also bring back life to soil. Why not? Soils are feeding us. Without a good soil, we have no food production.
And so concretely, betterSoil does regenerate this soil how? You work on the quality of humus, no? Give us a little bit more details on what is done exactly, so that people then go visit the booth.
Yes, we enhance humus with we have a natural fertilizer. Yeah. We produce it. For instance, we are startups in Kenya, Malawi, Iran, and also Germany. In Iran, last year we started the production of this natural fertilizer, that we do not put more fertilizer into the soil that we do not need. This is like a very good from trash, bio-waste, everything that we collect and make a fertilizer out of it. The other side is to consult farmers, to work with farmers over a long period of time, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, that we together make the soil healthy and strong again. So the one side, production of biofertilizer or natural fertilizer; on the other side, the soil consultancy that we offer to farmers.
Okay, great.
Yes.
And so you know where to go to learn more. Thanks for this. And you make the case for all of us to think more about soil. And there was that documentary, what was it called? Kiss the Ground, no? I don't know.
Yes,
Have you seen
that's
that? If you haven't seen that, that's a great documentary. If you don't know the importance of soil, watch it. Kiss the Ground, I think it's called. I don't know if I'm supposed to do PR for that, but that's fine. Yann, thanks for joining us. You work with WWF-France, where you head their work on land biodiversity. Right? You're also a big promoter of integrating approach for soil regeneration. Can you give us, same thing, illustrations about clearly what are some solutions you're promoting with WWF on that front?
Yeah, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Yes, our idea is to say that, of course, we've been forgetting soils for decades or even centuries, since the physiocrats in terms of schools of thought. And now soils are coming back to the agenda. And it's important to not see soils just as technical objects, as carbon sinks, but as living organizations, living organisms, and integrated with the ecosystem. the ecosystem of living, of plants and animals, and ourselves, farmers, foresters, and so in the focus that we are now giving to the soil conservation, soil restoration, it's important to not forget what's about the model of production, of exploitation, that's above ground. And so in addition to considering the ecology of soil, it's also important to consider the ecology of what's above. How can we reach a good quality of soil? By which kind of practice, of farming model, of forestry model? Who is going to do that? Who is going to get richer? Is it an industrial company abroad, or is it the farmer or the forester owner on the very side? So that's our viewpoint. Of course, I'm sure it's shared quite generally, but we think it's important to not to not consider soil too much as a technical object, but as a living and social object.
So does it mean concretely that when you focus on soil regeneration, your advocacy is for a certain form of agriculture, right? Regenerative agriculture. That's part of your advocacy messages,
exactly,
correct? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
And concretely,
a concrete example
what we
then.
do is, for example, we work with the startup that's called Genesis. It's a soil quotation organization that will try to produce an index of soil quality.
Right.
And we work together to make sure that this index will encompass everything in addition to carbon and living organisation in soil, but also, again, the ecology, the biodiversity above ground, and, if possible, the farmer model. Which we are launching today, our first example here.
You mean today?
Yes.
Oh, it's not here. It's not with us. It's in another discussion.
Tonight.
Okay. Tonight. Okay.
And the idea again is to try to help farmers or forest owners to be able to be rewarded by the business, by municipalities, by charities, for conserving soil quality based on a specific, precise measurement of the soil quality. That's example number one. The number two is also something that we launched today. WWF-France is launching a new fund for forest conservation. In that case, it's not much about planting trees. It's about conserving forests, standing forests.
Yeah, yeah.
As you know, forests are, how do you say that? The biodiversity of forest is higher the oldest the forest is. So what we need to do is to keep our forest old and let them become old, let's say, at home somehow. So we're trying to fund conservation of standing forests by helping forest owners to keep their forests and to compensate, and then compensating for the loss of revenue, the loss of revenue. Because when you conserve forests, of course, you exploit them less or not at all, and so you lose money or you don't earn that much money. So we're going to compensate that, and that's called, we call it nature impact, and it's a fund that we launched today. We're going to call for tenders for forest projects today. It's been launched this morning. So today we have gathered funds, and we are now looking for projects.
And just let me go back a little bit on that index you mentioned. I can see how. So we heard it in the first question, but maybe we can unpack here a little bit. We have carbon credits, right? We know that the whole market for nature credit is being created. And when I'm hearing you talking about this index, I'm thinking about good soil credit coming up through that index. Given the whole backlash there is on these markets that have been created just to make money out of that, and you WWF, so how are you managing that in terms of possible outcomes or using your index?
Of course, we've given that a lot of thinking. The idea is, of course, to step away from offsetting. Offsetting is a means to reduce your abatement efforts by saying, okay, I'm going to reduce my efforts, and then I will offset what I haven't done, let's say, at
or
home.
not reducing and buying your way out.
Exactly. So that's not something we want to do.
Okay.
We want to say that, okay, if you want to fund some conservation projects, it's not for offsetting. It's for additional contribution to the national effort. So you somehow you donate this work, this effort to the country, to the planet, and it's not to offsetting your own efforts. So that's number one. Number two, it's of course impossible to sell them. Once you funded some conservation, it's absolutely impossible to sell the amounts, the tons of carbon or the hectares of biodiversity you've protected. It's just yours. You can claim you've done that, but you cannot again neither sell it or reduce your effects. And the third idea is to put biodiversity criteria first. Usually, carbon projects are about carbon, and biodiversity is a co-benefit. And we're going to reverse that. We're going to fund biodiversity projects that are going to fund and to conserve standing forests, and carbon will be a co-benefit. Calculated co-benefit, of course, but a co-benefit. So the focus, the onus, will be put on biodiversity.
Yeah, thanks for that. An important debate to follow as these markets are being created, and like markets for what in terms of possible outcome. Alain-Richard, I wanted to go back to you when we talk about the role of the private sector and of investment on desertification in particular. When I read about the outcome of COP15 on desertification, one of the discussion was the lack of engagement of the private sector on that particular topic. Like everybody's all investing on carbon credits, market solutions, less on desertification. What's the business case for this type of investments?
In a country like Côte d'Ivoire, I will take a country like Côte d'Ivoire in West Africa. We try to make investment in the forest profitable for investors.
Yeah.
How? Côte d'Ivoire lost 80% of its forest in 50 years.
80%
of its forest and the goal now is now we have only 10% of the forest all around Côte d'Ivoire, right? And we have to go up to 20% by 2030. So the big problem was to finance reforestation.
Yeah.
So we tried to have private companies invest in the forest by agroforestry. Agroforestry is a way to finance reforestation, because agriculture can go side by side with the forest.
Yeah.
If we have the forest, your agriculture is more profitable. You have more efficiency, more yield. So the country gave private sector concessions.
Okay.
Concessions, land concessions. Okay, and you have the concession for a certain period of time, depending on what agriculture you do on the land. Let's say you plant rubber trees. The rubber tree has a lifespan of 50 years. So the state gives you a concession for 50 years, while you have an obligation to plant trees, forest trees, and your rubber trees.
Okay.
So you earn your income with your rubber exploitation, but at the same time, you plant the trees that are going to stay after you finish. So it's a way to finance reforestation, because you cannot have private sector coming in forest business if they don't earn money. Yeah. They have to earn something. So you have agriculture companies that came into that business, but also forest people, because you have an industry of wood industry in Côte d'Ivoire. So you need wood for construction. So the wood industry invests in the forest to secure its input. So you have foresters also investing in the forest to secure the input. The thing that is particular is that the land is owned by the state,
okay,
not by the farmers. So you don't have a question of land ownership and all that. It's only you deal with the state. For the farmers, same thing. They have an obligation to plant trees in their farm. So it's a concession that is given by the state also to the farmers. to have the obligation to plant a certain amount of trees in their farm. So in that way, we succeed. We are succeeding in with the new forest law. We are succeeding in reforesting Côte d'Ivoire. But it's a way to do it that it can be repeated
in other countries.
Yeah, in other countries.
And are you attracted in international investors for
international
these
investors, local investors also are investing in
international organizations as well? Because that sounds also like the type of things that international organization would be interested in.
International organization is less interested, but private sector is interested.
Okay.
Yeah, the private sector. And we need the financing from the private sector. It's quicker, it's more efficient, and it's a win-win situation.
Thanks. So Azadeh, you're in that space as a startup. I don't know if I can ask you if your startup is already profitable or not, where you are in that. And so that's my first question. Is there room for startups to also be profitable, or at least recover their cost in that space? And is there room for more startup in fighting soil degradation?
I mean, it should be. Otherwise, we don't have any food to eat in some years.
Yes.
So our population is growing to 10 billion people by the end of century, and we are losing soils. And as I said, no soil, no food. What do we do? So we need to make space for startups to come. We need to give them money. We need to accelerate also the process. As exactly you said, to combine agriculture with forestry, to combine agriculture with other sectors, to bring private sector, make it much more attractive. When they pay, for instance, for planting trees, like as Plant for the Planet does, then it should be also room that we keep the trees, we can then hire people, hire staff to take care of trees, we can make an economic circularity and so on. So without startups or without business that are not profitable for agriculture and forestry, we are losing 10 million hectares good soil every year.
So there's still some space for more to join your proof of concept. People can come see you at your booth to discuss how you got that done. And we are out of time. One last sentence, everybody. I'm just going to ignore this. One last sentence in terms of getting the room here to do something. Just one sentence, please.
Well, let's consider the biodiversity crisis on the par with the climate crisis.
Yeah, thanks for that. Alain-Richard, one final word.
We cannot talk about desertification or drought without talking about climate, without talking about biodiversity. It's a whole.
It's a whole.
So we need to bring awareness to the people, the communities, to the governments, and to the finance.
Thank you. Azadeh?
Don't forget the soil, the second largest carbon reservoir on Earth. That's it.
Don't forget the soil. Yann, Alain-Richard, Azadeh, thank you very much.